Some daily routines are good.
Time to hit the gym.
Some aren't so good.
Time to hit the buffet.
Walmart has everything you need for the good kind, like one-a-day vitamins, 65-count 50-plus, or 70-count VitaCraves, each only $6.97. And 10-count airborne dual-action effervescent tablets for just $10.97.
Time to hit Walmart.
Exactly. Save money on the little things that make a big difference. Start strong. Save big. Walmart.
Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Welcome, everyone. It is Friday night, and you are listening to Paranormal Review Radio, the only radio show without commercials and with more great paranormal talk. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Anthony Agati in New York.
And I'm Lucy Liebfried in Chicago. Put the kids in bed and get comfy because you're about to have a Paranormal Friday night. Welcome, friends, family, fellow investigators, and those who are new to the field. Do you have a question to ask us or a story to tell? Well, don't worry. You have two ways to be heard. Call into the show and be on the air live by dialing 661-244-9831. Press the number 1 to get your call in queue, or you can type your questions in the chat room. Anthony and I will refer to them during the show. And if you're listening on the archives or on YouTube, well, make sure you get here on Friday nights live. When you're not listening to us, you can check out our Facebook page and YouTube channel for some cool articles, videos, show highlights, and promotions. And if that's not enough, you can always drop us a line at paranormal.review@aol.com. Okay, kids, it's time for Paranormal Review Radio.
Well, we both hope, Lucy and I both hope that everyone out there had a very Merry Christmas yesterday and that Santa was all good to you all, whether you were nice or naughty all year long. I know Lucy and I both had a pleasant day yesterday separately, and we all wish that you all spent it with your families and had a wonderful time and enjoyed your days off from work or from the kids or whatever you wanted to do yesterday. We hope that you enjoyed it. Today we are going to celebrate post-Christmas, a little celebration that we want to get into as far as, now that Santa's sort of back in the North Pole and he's away with his elves and the elf on the shelf is now back at the North Pole, we can sort of play naughty again and talk about paranormal stories. So Lucy and I have gathered some pretty cool, insightful stories that we wanted to go over with everyone tonight. But as always, we always open up the airwaves to everybody out there who's listening live with us. And you can always give us a call at 661-244-9831. We'd love to hear if you've had any paranormal stories. Maybe the ghost of Christmas past visited you yesterday. Maybe you had some miracle that happened. Maybe there was something that mysteriously took place when you walked down the stairs and maybe saw something different underneath the Christmas tree. I don't know. We'd love to hear the stories that you may have encountered yesterday or within recent years that you'd love to share with us and with everybody on air. But we've got some stories and some odd, some strange, some things that will make you think, and some pertaining to Christmas, some not pertaining to Christmas. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lucy because I think she's got a few that may interest you.
Well, the first thing I it came up yesterday, and of course I had my Chinese food, and we watched Christmas Story.
Rah, 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 rah.
Is it really true if you put your tongue on the post that it's going to get stuck?
Yes, it is true.
It is?
How do I know that? Because I did that when I was a kid, believe it or not, yes. I didn't put it on a pole, but I did put it on something that was metal. I remember this, and it was not in the movies. I'm not hallucinating. It was not from the Christmas Story. I did this when I was a kid.
So how do they, wait a minute, so how do they separate you? You have to, and did you stand there going, ah?
No, I didn't flail like the kid in the movie, and the fire department and police didn't have to come, no. No, what I actually did was, because I was a very smart kid when I was younger, I decided to conjure up some saliva, because the saliva in my mouth was already heated, and I just salivated all over my tongue, and it actually loosened that up. Why are you laughing at me?
Because the image is just, and I can't believe you did that.
I'm a kid, of course. Every kid does stupid things.
Yes, Fritz, I would pay to see that too.
Wait. But what's so paranormal about that?
It's not. It's just, it was something that came up yesterday, and I thought to myself, okay, does this really happen? So then my son suggested that I go to the freezer and try it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Did you ever do it with an ice cube?
No.
Did you ever dry your tongue, take like a paper towel or a towel and dry your tongue, try and get, the saliva off of your tongue, and then stick it on an ice cube and it sticks?
Really? See, I don't think of these things.
When you're a kid and you're bored, you try everything, especially if you're a boy.
Well, I guess maybe I've been lucky. Okay, well, there's a couple things that I was looking at, and of course it's Christmas, and you start thinking of things, and the first thing that came to mind was, why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? So, did a little research, and I actually got this from CBC News, Canadian Broadcasting Company News. And why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? Why?
I'm still under the weather, so my brain is not functioning correctly, and the meds are still within my body. But I do remember this. I believe it was an arbitrary date that was picked, I believe, by the church, if I remember correctly. And I think the actual biblical date of Jesus' birth, I believe, is I think August or September, if I remember. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the stories. I mean, I actually found on DavidIcke.com, there's like this whole train of discussion that Jesus' birth actually took place on September 11th, and, they've got a whole conspiracy that all these things that the horror that happened on September 11th is actually kind of like somehow related to the birth of Christ. But there's a whole train of conversation that they talk about that. But what I found for December 25th, basically some places in the world, they celebrate the birth of Christ as late as January 6th. Mm-hmm. Here it's December 25th when Santa comes. And early Christians had no Christmas as we would recognize it, okay? The Bible suggests that Jesus was born when shepherds were tending their flock. And if you go back and you look at the research and stuff like that, there's no way that shepherds would be out in the fields in December. It would be more likely that they would be there in the summer or late summer.
Right.
So,
and I remember watching a documentary. I don't know if it was on the History Channel or the Science Channel. I can't remember which one it was. But they talked about, in the biblical times, even with the three wise men traveling so far, even if they did that during those winter months, they would never have made it. Physically, they would never have made it through that long journey to be able to see Jesus during that time, and it would not have been during those colder months of the season. So therefore, it could not have been on December 25th.
Well, Pope Julius in AD 350 decreed that December 25th would be the day that Jesus' birth would be celebrated. And the reasoning behind it was that they wanted to bring people into the Christian faith. And so he decided, or the church decided, that they were going to do it on a pagan holiday. And December 25th is actually a pagan holy day that celebrates the birth of the Persian sun god Mithras. And
right.
The church figured that if they held the holy day on the same day as the pagan holy day, that it would make it easier for the pagans to adjust to the new religion. So I found that interesting.
Which, by the way, the god of Mithra, was known to have existed prior to Jesus, had the same elements of Jesus' life as it is in the Bible. God of Mithra did everything, was born of a virgin, died, was crucified, resurrected, all of that, and lived prior to Jesus' time period. So it's kind of ironic that it happened to be put on that pagan day.
Well, that kind of led me to the next article that I was looking at, the Star of Bethlehem. Okay, was the Star of Bethlehem actually a star, or was it a paranormal event? According to, now this is from About Entertainment, but the first thing they bring up is that the only person that really talks about it in the Bible, it's only mentioned once. And it's only mentioned in Matthew chapter 2, paragraph 1. And it talks about the three wise men and how they see the star in the east and they came to worship him. It's the Gospel according to Matthew. It's the only book in the New Testament that mentions this mysterious star. The three kings, they saw the star in the east and they started following it. Well, there are some theories as to what the star actually is. There's one theory that it was a supernova, that it was a star, that happened. There's also a theory that it was a comet. But what I liked is that it could have been a UFO.
Yeah, I've heard that.
A lot of the people believe that the god or the gods of tradition were actually alien visitors, and they say that the idea that the star could have been a UFO. It was the aliens coming to either announce Jesus' birth, but the Star of Bethlehem actually could have been an extraterrestrial. Now, there's one other theory that Matthew just made it up. The story was a myth to validate the divinity of Jesus. One thing that what they come up with, what they consider the best theories are that it was a planetary conjunction. There's an astronomer, his name is Johannes Kepler, and he proposed in the 17th century that the Star of Bethlehem could have been the conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn. Such a rare conjunction took place in 7 BC in the constellation Pisces, and Pisces is a zodiac sign that's sometimes connected to the Hebrew. Kepler actually preferred the supernova explanation. Anyway, excuse me. There's another astrophysicist, Dr. Mike Molnar, who says it's the planet Jupiter, and he found good evidence that it was Jupiter, and he said he found his evidence in the form of an ancient coin. And the coin depicts the astrological sign for Aries, the ram, the sign of the Jews, and a bright celestial object. Molnar believes that this object is Jupiter. It goes on to say, that Jupiter underwent eclipses by the moon in Aries in 6 BC, and Jupiter was the regal star that conferred kingships, a power that was amplified when Jupiter was in close conjunction. So a lot of things, we all know that they used the stars and they used signs in the sky to forecast events. So therefore, if Jesus was born and, he was divine, this would be the announcement somehow in the stars. The main thing that I got from this is that the fact that people are thinking that it might be a paranormal event is in the fact that the star was moving. The star moved. The star supposedly moved in the direction where they were supposed to go. The wise men followed it. So, we've got the Bible. It only mentions it once. It only mentions it in Matthew. We don't have any other description of it in the Bible. So, I don't know. It could be, I'm partially thinking that it's a comet. I'd like to kind of believe that it was UFOs, but then that goes back to the theory, with the ancient aliens and all that. So, I just found that kind of interesting.
Well, it goes back to ancient civilizations. We've heard it so many times on documentaries, on television, and I'm sure everyone has read it online in blogs all over the internet, that, and even within native cultures, like Native American cultures, ancient civilizations gave natural occurrences human characteristics. They gave the stars and the celestial atmosphere human characteristics in order to relate to it, in order to in order to describe the happenings that were going on. There was no way to really tell the story in their times and in their mind unless you created a personality to this inanimate thing. And this inanimate thing is a star, is a planet. And at the time, I'm not sure if they understood that at that moment, but in, first, AD and in 7 BC, whatever time frame that this is all happening in, and you see this a lot of times within Native American culture, giving it animal characteristics. Mm-hmm. You get, you hear so many times, and you know this, Lucy, giving nature disasters or even nature elements animal characteristics in order to relate to it. And I've heard so many times where people have given, ancient civilizations have given the stars and the sun human personalities. And in their stories and in their oral history, they related it to a being. And so therefore, creating the sun, S-U-N, we've heard this so many times before, S-U-N, as the sun, S-O-N, created the Son of God. And the story then starts to, I guess, mesh or meld over the years and creates this, what we call the real story or the Bible. And therefore, we've created this religion, this belief that we all have today. Now, I'm not saying what is coming out of my mouth right now. I'm not saying it to be true, and I don't want people to say, oh, you're BSing and you're condemning religion. I'm not. I'm just stating what I believe because of all the facts that I have been surrounded by. That excuse me. That these are the elements that I'm putting together to formulate an opinion on. And if I can't prove the Bible itself, because the Bible to me is not proof. Anybody can write a book. You can write a book right now. Anybody that's listening right now can write a book about a pink polka-dotted elephant that speaks to animals and tells them what to do. Am I to believe that? No. Just because somebody years and years, 2,000 years ago, wrote this book, am I to believe that? No. Am I to find elements within regular history and in artifacts in history that support the data within the Bible? Yes, because here you've got substantial evidence. Now, I haven't seen that much substantial evidence to back up things in the Bible. I haven't seen anything come forward scientifically or anything that has been concrete evidence to validate anything in the Bible. And so, therefore, the story of Jesus being born and the whole idea of Christmas, I'm not sure what to believe in because I haven't seen anything of substantial proof. And that's my belief because being in the paranormal, you have to rely on evidence. You have to rely on the proof and the existence of the things that you put forward. You can't just walk into a haunted home and say, okay, it's haunted just because I have a feeling. No. You can feel it, yes, but to portray it to someone to say it is haunted and to validate that it is haunted, I have to portray evidence. And if I don't have evidence, then I can't make anybody believe it. And so I'm putting that sort of onus on the Bible. And I'm losing my voice as I'm talking, sorry.
Well, see, one thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this, when I was reading about this, is that you got to figure that ancient man back then, what did they have for forms of entertainment? I mean, of course, you look at the stars, they looked at the sky, and putting, characteristics on the constellations was their way of creating a reality on Earth, by looking at the sky and seeing the constellations and putting characteristics to them. Another story that comes to mind when I was reading about the comet, which I kind of believe because in different cultures and different stories in history, you have certain events that happen in the sky. A comet was always thought to be maybe a harbinger of something bad coming, an event that was going to happen. The one story that came to mind to me, which is not the Bible, but of course it has religious undertones, was the miracle at Fatima. And the people who, I forgot how many people, thousands of people thought the sun spinning. They report that the sun was spinning. In my mind, with everything that I've learned, all of the research, that I've done so far in my life, part of me is starting to think, let's say, what if this was a UFO? What if this was some kind of extraterrestrial occurrence where you're seeing the sun spinning? Could it have been a UFO? Could it have been some kind of... Could it be something extraterrestrial that happened? Because all of these people reported they saw the sun spinning. There's no proof. I mean, we weren't there. We didn't see it. But knowing what we know now, or knowing all of the research and learning all that we have, is it possible that something like this, the Star of Bethlehem, the sun at Fatima, I'm sure there's other situations that right off the top of my head I don't know. It's beginning to lead me to think that there's more to it than the miracles that we believe them to be.
It's the belief, to me, it's the belief that you have, and the faith of what you believe in is what conjures up the experience that you're seeing. So if a mass of people, say at Fatima, I don't know how many exactly, the number of people that were there, if it was 100 or over 100. I think I remember, was it like 60-something, 66 people or something like that? I can't remember. But anyway, there was a good amount of people that had witnessed this thing at Fatima. From what I remember, the accounts were this bright, the brightest of light ever. And it was so bright that it was almost blinding, that they had to shield their eyes. And in in this bright light, I don't know if all of them saw this, but I think it was from the accounts that I remember from the story, and I'm just going off the top of my head, that a good majority of them saw a silhouette of Mary. And this was at the time when supposedly Mary had come down to tell them, I believe it was about the future, and about the sort of corruption and the things that were going to happen bad if they did not change or if things did not change. Now, when a group of people, a mass of people, see something like this, a majority of them, I would think, have a religious-based faith in something. And if the statistics are right, I can guarantee you a majority of them, depending on the environment that they're in, were probably of Christian belief, of some form of Christian belief. And so therefore, seeing this, seeing this incident happen, right away, in order to comfort yourself, you go to your faith, you go to your belief. And in your belief, it transforms what you're actually experiencing at the moment. And in that moment, you believe you are seeing Mary. You believe you are hearing the things, because what it is comforting you in that time. It's almost like the time, it's almost as if you are at the time of your death and you are about to die. And people have said that the comfortness that you feel is what, sort of like going into your own mind and creating that sort of serene, happy place in order to get through that moment in time. And so I'm sort of equating that to this moment. And for them to sort of, quote-unquote, survive that incident of seeing this bright light in the sky, they've referred back to their faith. And creating that moment, they've created a faith-based incident or experience. And they created it as though it was Mary. But in probability, what it could have been was a paranormal experience. It could have been a UFO. It could have been anything. It could have been a natural experience. It could have been, who knows? It could have been a meteor shower or something. Who knows what that would have been? But I think at that moment, the fear created the people who experienced that at that moment to go back into themselves in order to comfort themselves, pull out what is more comforting to them, and what was comforting to them was their religion, was their faith. And so therefore, they created that in the experience and created that experience as a faith-based happening.
Well, the description of the event that happened, it says there's reported that there were between 30 and 40,000 people that saw this. And according to the witnesses, after a period of rain, the clouds broke and the sun appeared as an opaque spinning disk in the sky. It was said to be significantly duller than normal, and it cast multicolored lights across the landscape. The sun then reported to careen towards the earth in a zigzag pattern.
Is that from eyewitness accounts?
This is from reporters who talked to people who were there.
Okay.
Okay, so when you think about what they're describing an opaque disc spinning with multicolored lights. Well, now, in modern day, of course, what's the first thing you think of? You think of a UFO. Mm-hmm. The fact that they reported it zigzagging, moving back and forth. Again, the movement is something you would equate to a UFO. So,
but you know, it could have been. It actually could have been the experience of Mary. It could have been a religious experience. Mm-hmm. And when people say zigzag, it's sort of I don't know if the word is subjective or objective. Again, I can't think. The meds are still in my brain. You know, when somebody says zigzag, it could be a slight zigzag, or it could be an exaggerated zigzag. You know, it all depends on the variation in the word zigzag. So, you know, when people say that, you sort of take it with a grain of salt. And when someone is describing that to a reporter is just going to report and say it was a zigzag disc shape. But someone who is experiencing it, the only way that they can relate the story to a tangible word is to say it's a disc shape, lights, bright colored lights, and it zigzagged. And right away we think of a UFO. But in actuality, maybe it was a religious experience. Maybe it was Mary up there. Maybe the disc shape was just because it was round in nature, and it moved side to side. And the way that this person described it was zigzag, So I'm sort of taking both sides of the equation here, and playing devil's advocate, but sort of don't believe everything that you hear, whether it's paranormal or not. And I'm not negating your story, but I'm sort of playing on both sides.
Well, there's one other thing that the witnesses reported. They reported that their previously wet clothes suddenly became completely dry, and as well as the wet and muddy ground, because it's been raining before this happened, the ground became dry. So is it a miracle? Is it something? And if I remember correctly, what I read is that the majority of people didn't really see Mary. Mary appeared to the 3 children, and they were there because of what the kids had been saying, because of the messages that they were getting. But the majority of people never really saw the apparition of Mary herself. They did see the spinning disc. They did, according to this, the fact that the clothes dried up. It had been raining, and the ground drying up. I mean, that isn't a miracle. Could be, but then again, everything that I'm learning, everything that I'm finding as I learn more about UFOs, as I read more about, encounters, it leads me to kind of think, okay, so maybe this was a UFO encounter as opposed to a miracle.
But just because the clothes and the ground dried up, you think it's a UFO instead of a miracle?
The zigzag, the colored lights, the disc spinning. I mean, it falls into place with other accounts of UFOs all across the world. I mean, what's the likelihood of a lot of these people even knowing what a UFO is, knowing the descriptions? They wouldn't know that. The majority of these people, I don't think they would. But what they're describing falls in line with other descriptions. Different places, different times in the world. It just leads me back to the fact is that I don't think we're alone. I really don't think we're alone.
I'm not negating that. I don't think we are either. But I take each story and each article and each piece of experience and event sort of individually. I don't sort of clump it all together and say because this story sounds similar to another one, therefore it is just like the other one, and I say it is to be a UFO experience. I don't. I sort of take each one individually, and sort of like what Sharon Swift is saying in chat right now, they could have all been eating mushrooms. Who knows? Do we really know what they were doing all on that hilltop? We don't know what they were doing in that area and what they were doing prior to it as much as has been reported. So anything could have been going on at that moment. I just sort of leave it open, and I don't have all the evidence, so I sort of can't formalize a final opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that led me to Christmas trees. Okay, where does the the tradition of having a Christmas tree come from? And this one is actually from the History Channel. It is from the History of Christmas Trees, and where is it? How it all got started. Long before the advent of Christianity, plants and trees that remain green all year had a special meaning for people in the winter. Evergreen, people used to hang the evergreen boughs over their doors and their windows. In many countries, it was believed that evergreens would keep away witches, ghosts, evil spirits, and illness. Let's see. The ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra, who had the head of a hawk and wore the sun as a blazing disk. And at the solstice, Ra began to recover from illness, so the Egyptians filled their homes with green palm rushes, which symbolized for them the triumph of life over death. The Romans marked the solstice with a feast called Saturnalia in honor of the god Saturn, who was the god of agriculture. And that festival meant the farms and orchards would be green, they would be fruitful, and in order to mark the occasion, they decorated their homes and temples with evergreen boughs. In Northern Europe, the Druids also decorated their temples with evergreen boughs as a symbol of everlasting life. The Vikings thought evergreens were special plant of the sun god Balder, but the actual Christmas tree tradition didn't start until the 16th century when devout Christians brought decorated trees into their homes. Some Christians built pyramids of wood and decorated them with evergreens and candles, if wood was scarce. And let's see. It really didn't take hold here in the 19th century. German settlers in Pennsylvania started bringing the trees in. The Pennsylvania German settlements had community trees as early as 1747, but as late as the 1840s, Christmas trees were seen as pagan symbols and not accepted by most Americans.
Right, that's what I remember it as being, as a pagan ritual, and from my understanding, it was a German tradition that was brought over. I don't remember why, but I always remember that it was German tradition and of a pagan ritual. So, but I don't know why we decorated it. I don't know if it said anything about decorating the tree and how that all started. You know, like with the Christmas lights and you know, the Christmas balls, and how that all started.
Well, people first started decorating them with like homemade ornaments. The German Americans, they used apples, nuts, marzipan, popcorn, but electricity, the discovery of electricity was what brought about the Christmas lights, making it possible for the trees to glow on days on end. And once that started, then all of a sudden the trees began to appear in town squares across the country, and having a Christmas tree in the home became an American tradition. So there. Your Christmas tree is a pagan symbol.
Okay. What else? Anything Christmassy? Well, you know, but as you're looking for another story, I just wanted to let everybody know that we are opening the lines. That we'd love to hear your stories, and as I mentioned before, if you know, the ghost of Christmas past visited you yesterday, or if you had maybe a miracle that happened, any kind of miracle that happened, we'd love to hear from you. Any kind of story, paranormal. Give us a call at 661-244-9831. We'd love to have you on the air and talk to you about it. And if there's anything that you want to talk about, and maybe any other topic, maybe any other paranormal topic that you wanted to talk about, feel free to give us a call tonight. And you know, I've got a story that I found really interesting, and I actually was talking to Lucy about this earlier, that I'm hoping that we can actually have this person on as a guest if we can get him on. But it's a very, very interesting story, very weird story. And it's a very current story that I'm going to talk about after Lucy goes through her Christmas paranormal things.
Well, the last one that I want to talk about is, you know, we all know about Santa Claus, we all know about St. Nicholas, but do you know who Krampus is?
Oh, yes. Ugly Krampus.
Bad Santa. He is half goat, half demon. He is a horrific beast who literally beats people into being nice and not naughty. Excuse me. A lot of the images of Krampus, he's got horns, dark hair, fangs. He's the anti-St. Nicholas. He comes with chains and belts that he lashes about. He also has a bundle of birch sticks that are meant to swat naughty children. He then hauls the bad kids down to the underworld. So where did Krampus come from? Well, Krampus came from the German, his name is derived from the German word Krampen, meaning claw. He's said to be the son of Hel in Norse mythology. This legendary beast also shares characteristics with other scary demonic creatures in Greek mythology, including satyrs and fauns. And the legend is part of a centuries-old Christmas tradition in Germany, where Christmas celebrations begin in early December. Krampus was created as a counterpart to the kindly St. Nicholas, who rewarded children with sweets. Krampus, in contrast, would swat the wicked children and take them away to his lair. Krampus shows up on he shows up in town the night before December 6th, and that's known as Krampusnacht or Krampus Night, and that's the day before St. Nicholas Day. And he's just evil, and he's kind of having a kind of a renaissance right now. You know, people that are anti-Christmas, they're starting to extol the virtues of Krampus. So one thing I did notice, there's like a lot of stories about Krampus and people talking about it. But when you see the images of this guy, it's like freaking scary. I mean, it's one thing, you know, to say, you know, you're going to be bad, you're going to get a lump of coal in your stocking. But to actually have this half demon, come and beat you, you know, it's just, I guess it would make me behave if I was a little kid and someone comes up and says, you know what, Krampus is going to get you.
Well, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about this. First of all, why does there always have to be an evil side to a good? You know, there always has to be some sort of evil twin to something that's always good. There's another sort of quote unquote Krampus out there, and I don't know from what continent, and it's a female one. I know Krampus is a male. There's a female one, and I believe her name starts with a G. I just tried looking her up, tried to find what her name was. I think it's Grizzle or Grille, something like that. But what she does is she goes around and she eats the children, the bad children. And I can't remember if she's got a special day just like Krampus does or not, but she goes around and eats the children. And there's like this image in this picture, a depiction of her just eating a child in half. It's really disgusting the way that these cultures and traditions have depicted it. But, you know, it's not very far off from the current tradition that people have right now. And if you think about it, it really isn't any kind of different other than this sort of grotesque eating or beating. You know, this whole thing about the elf on the shelf, it's kind of eerie and creepy to have this little man who's maybe about 10 inches tall roaming around your house, who's supposedly supposed to watch you as a child, and then report everything that you do to another person to see whether or not you're good or bad. It's sort of the same thing, other than, you know, not beating them up or eating them. This little elf on the shelf is sort of like, you know, Big Brother or, you know, some sort of, I don't know, like almost like a ghostly figure sort of watching and hovering over, like the Shadow Man, hovering over you and watching you as you do things throughout the day. I don't know. I never grew up with Elf on the Shelf, so I don't know what goes on through kids' minds thinking that there's this little thing that's watching me and then waking up every morning and finding it in a different spot. I don't know. I think I'd be creeped out. I don't know. I just be creeped out as a kid.
The idea of the elf on the shelf is creepier to me than Krampus. It really. And again, I'd never heard about it until a few years ago, and it's just like, okay, you've got like this little thing that's showing up, and that's creepy to me. I'm sorry.
Well, I remember in the 70s we had that same elf on the shelf depiction that these kids have now. We had that. That was a decoration, as I remember. It was the same little elf, but it was a decoration. I remember in the late 70s, early 80s, we had that. But I don't remember any stories behind it. I don't believe there were any stories behind it that I was watching anybody. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of creepy. To me, somebody posted today on Facebook, one of my friends posted on Facebook today that, we never had elf on a shelf growing up. We had the belt on the shelf, and that was up all year long. And so if we ever did anything wrong, we knew we'd get the belt. That was kind of funny. But I don't know. I equate this little elf on the shelf thing to this Krampus or this other woman with a G, I forgot her name, that eats children.
Well, you know what? When you think about it, though, when you think about the song, about Santa Claus, he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows if you've been bad or good. Santa's a creeper.
Well, you know what, though? Also, too, it's almost like God. Santa's like God. God knows if you've been good or bad. God knows everything. He's omniscient. He knows everything. So what's the difference, really?
I just didn't like that part about he sees you when you're sleeping. That just kind of, Santa's a little creepy. Trina's, he's a pervert.
It's funny. I just, there always has to be some sort of evil side to whatever's good out there. And I don't know if it's, obviously I know what the reason is for it all, and it's supposed to keep kids in line and, make sure during this high time of stress and craziness that the parents are going through, well, with work and shopping and, getting, the dinner ready and the event day ready and, everything else. Everybody's busy and crazy, and so therefore parents need a little help to get their kids in line and their children to behave during, the 25 days or whatever days of Christmas that there are. And so therefore, creating this sort of elf on the shelf, I understand it, but it's kind of sick. It's kind of a little bit of a twisted thing. And I'm just curious. I would love to get into a kid's mind right now. Obviously, if you ask them, they're just going to say they think it's fun. I talk to my nieces all the time, and they love it. And the funny thing is, they always say to me, "You can't touch it. You can't touch him. You can't touch him. Don't touch him." And I'm laughing. I'm like, why? He's going to lose his powers. You can't touch him. And so I just laugh. But I don't know. I would love to see in 20 years from now if this elf on the shelf does anything mentally to kids. And, whoever's the maker of this product, if they're going to be sued in 20 years or not.
Well, then the last thing that I found was, where did the origin of the lumps of coal in your stocking come from?
Where did the what?
There's the lump of coal that you get if you're bad.
The what, though?
Lump of coal. You get a lump of coal in your stocking if you're bad.
No, you said a word before that. What?
Stop.
The origin?
The origin. No, just a lump of
coal. The origin?
The elf on a shelf is going to get you.
Yeah.
But there's a couple little traditions. Like one starts. This one's in Sicily. She's called La Befana. She's a witch who delivers presents instead of Santa Claus. And when Jesus was born, La Befana saw a bright star in the sky. She gathered some toys and other presents to give the baby Jesus. And when she couldn't find the stable, she goes around looking for Jesus every year, and she leaves toys for the good children and coal for the bad one. And some people say the lumps of coal started in Holland in the 16th century. Before Christmas, children would put their clogs by the fireplace, And if they were good, they got candy or a toy. And if they were bad, they got a lump of coal. But the saddest one that I thought was from England. In the 19th century, most of Europe was powered by coal, and most household furnaces were coal burning. So people would put like a pan of hot coals under their bed to keep it warm. And in England, the rich families, they would get candy and toys in their stockings. And the poor ones, who they believed were made poor by God as a punishment for their family's bad deeds, would get coal. And that would be considered lucky because then they could warm the house. I thought that was just so sad. That was just sad. But that was the lump of coal.
That is sad, and you just ended it on a sad note now.
Sorry, now that I've torn down all Christmas traditions.
All right. Is that all with the Christmas pieces
That's all
that
the
you
Christmas
have?
stuff I have. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't go the Christmas route. I figured because it's post-Christmas and Santa was back in the North Pole that we can sort of go back to being paranormal a little bit and go a little weird and a little strange tonight. And I have heard about this gentleman, and his name is Andrew Basiago, or Basiago, Basiago. I've heard of his name for a while now, and I think I may have heard him maybe a couple of years ago, and it was in an article I remember reading about, and then there were a couple of videos that I saw of it, but then I never really paid attention to him after that, and I never did any complete full research on him and of his accounts or his accusations or his life or anything like that. So I really didn't delve into it, or otherwise I probably would have been amazed by it and probably would have brought this up even sooner than now. But I'm really interested in this gentleman. One, because I'm not sure whether I believe him or not. And I usually give everyone the benefit of the doubt when it comes to paranormal and claims of paranormal. But this gentleman, and the topic that this is all about is time travel. Now, we've touched on time travel a little bit a while back, and we've done a show, I think it was just basically ourselves talking about time travel and the evidence, and therefore things that were purported in the news and people and claims and all of that stuff. But this gentleman, Andrew Basiago, who is a lawyer from Vancouver, Washington, very high-level lawyer. He's got many accreditations to his name. He very well known, and is actually in 2016, from what I understand, in 2016, he's going to be running for president. He's claiming that he's going to be doing that. Whether or not he enacts and goes forward with it, that's another story. But anyway, this gentleman, Andrew Basiago, claims that as a child, his father was somehow a part of the CIA and was some sort of liaison between government agencies and was affiliated with the Project Pegasus group. And the Project Pegasus group at the time was a government project that, and you have to excuse me, my voice, if I talk for a while, it starts to get raspy again because I'm getting over bronchitis. So I may stop, and Lucy, I may have you talk for a little bit so I can rest my voice and then talk again. Okay. So as a child, Andrew's father was a part of the CIA, and he was a part of this group, Project Pegasus. And apparently his father came to witness his son, Andrew, having these strange abilities Andrew was able to hear his father's thoughts and understand his father's thoughts as a child, and could repeat what his father was thinking. His father could, some sort of mental telepathy. He could hear what his father was thinking and repeat it back to him, or answer his father. That was one of them. The other thing was also, too, that Andrew was able to, as a child, levitate objects. He was able to levitate his toys, as he claims, approximately 3 feet off the ground, and levitate them and hover for a while. And his father witnessed this and understood that his son had these skills and these abilities that could be useful within the Project Pegasus group. And the Project Pegasus group was this government agency, or this government group that had to do with teleportation, that was able to, as he claims, teleport people either in the current time frame that they were in, and this is, I'm talking about in the, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s, and they could teleport people within that same time frame, or teleport you in the past or into the future. And obviously this was something that was going on for years and had much success, because the next step in this project was to see the effects of this teleportation on children. And his father, Andrew's father, inducted him into this project and created him as a member and as a study amongst other children as well. And for a period of 5 years, he participated in this. And the project, actually Project Pegasus, was a division under DARPA. And if you guys are familiar with any of these names within the government agency DARPA, usually hear a lot of DARPA. If you hear the acronym DARPA, it's usually affiliated with sort of secrecy. And if you remember, Lucy, we talked about DARPA when there was that weather, the control of the weather, and that the government can control hurricanes and sending out signals to create tornadoes and the moon cycle and all this other stuff. Well, DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So anyway, for a period of 5 years, from the age of 7 to 12, Andrew participated in Project Pegasus, and he was teleported, I believe he had said 8 times within the current time frame as well as in the past. And Andrew claims that he teleported back in time to the Gettysburg Address, for one instance, when Abraham Lincoln was giving the Gettysburg Address, and he purports that there is evidence of this in a picture at the Gettysburg Address of, I forget the woman who took the actual photograph, but you can probably look it up. If you type in his name and Gettysburg Address and you type in picture, you could probably find this. It's supposedly a picture of him as a child in Bugle Boy gear, I think it's called, and man shoes. He claims to have been wearing man shoes. I cannot for the life of me find out why he was wearing man shoes, and I can't seem to see why he explains it. But anyway, the picture shows a boy in big shoes, but I can't tell if it's him because he has not shown a picture of him as a child to put next to it to see whether or not he looks just like this child. In another instance, he has purported to have gone back to when Lincoln was assassinated at Booth Theater. And he has said that he has gone back to that night several times, and he has said that in one instance, he went back at the time when he went back previously, so he actually saw himself as a child at Booth Theater back when Lincoln was getting assassinated, if that makes sense. But he never saw he never saw Lincoln getting assassinated. He was always running out of the theater as the gunshots were going off. So he claims to have gone back in history, but he's also claimed to have gone, I don't think he said in the future, but he said he's also gone to Mars. Now, there's a project, and I forgot the name of it. Forgive me, but there was a project that, again, his father enrolled him in, where they teleported him and a group of children to Mars to, I guess, see the effects of that teleportation to another planet. And apparently the U.S. has colonized Mars already. We apparently have a base there, according to Andrew. And we've had this for over 30 years, almost 40 years, I believe, because he's talking about in the early 70s that this has happened. So over 40 years, we've sort of colonized the planet Mars. And what's interesting in this story is that when he was inducted into this group to go to Mars, he claims to have been grouped in with, and get ready for this, President Obama. Okay? He's claimed that President Obama, who, and I want to get the name right.
Barry Soetoro,
that's it. Barry Soetoro is actually the name of Barack Obama, or was the name that Barack Obama used when Barack Obama was a child during this teleportation to Mars. And he also was there with, he claims, Regina Dugan, who Obama appointed as the 19th director, the first female director of the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency in 2009. So he actually, when he became president, he actually inducted her as the director and the first female director of DARPA in 2009 when Barack Obama became president. But so Regina Dugan, President Barack Obama, Andrew, and I believe there was another person, all went to Mars. And he claims that President Obama went to Mars twice and is denying all this. Now, back in the 70s, he's also claiming that since this has all happened and that time travel is possible, that since the 70s, everything that has occurred and all of the political figures that have become president or vice president or have been in cabinet or congressmen, every one of them knew that they were going to be in that position back in the 70s, that they were told this, excuse me, back in the early 70s. And they were told this, and they were told when it was going to happen, and they were told what they were going to do when they were president or when they were going to be vice president and how to go about this. So Barack Obama knew he was going to be president when he was elected and what was going to happen. All of this stuff, Dick Cheney, President Bush was told this back in the early 70s. Everybody knew all of this. And apparently he knows that he's going to be president in 2016. And so therefore, that is why he is running for president under what he is calling the Truth Campaign, because he is trying to get the government and the U.S. to reveal the truth about time travel and this teleportation. And, since then, and I'll let Lucy talk about this, but since then he has, I believe since 2004, he has actually come forward with revelations about what he believes is the truth about teleportation, and he's come forward with, what he believes is the evidence that there is life on Mars, that time travel is possible. I'm sorry. Go, Lucy. Let me just recap something. Okay, go.
He claims the CIA has the Mars visitation program, and he claims that he was in training with the classmates Barack H. Obama, Regina Dugan, who you mentioned. There's a William C. McCool and William Stillings. This all happened in 1980. He claims to have teleported to Mars in the 80s as an Earth ambassador to the Martian civilization. Now, he didn't publish his article till nearly 3 decades later, and he claims to be astonished to discover the life on Mars. But then again, he's a time traveler. Let's see.
There's
he
also
claims that the government.
He
claims the government is covering up the president's space travel, and part of what Project Pegasus is doing is they have a petition to have Obama's space travel released, the details about it.
There's he has also brought forward or has talked about 3 individuals who also have evidence or who also can back up and verify his claims. There are 3 people. One is a gentleman by the name of Michael Ralph, who is a former U.S. serviceman, and he claims that he spent 20 years as a member of the permanent security staff of a U.S. facility on Mars. So, if we can't get Andrew Basiago, let's see if we can get this guy Michael Ralph on the show. The second one is a former Department of Defense scientist, Arthur Newman, who has testified publicly that he teleported to a U.S. facility on Mars for a Department of Defense project meeting. And then the third person who we have talked to, I think it was a couple of years ago, we talked to Laura Eisenhower, who is President Eisenhower's great-granddaughter or granddaughter?
Great-granddaughter.
Great-granddaughter. Yes, great-granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, who in 2007, she refused a covert attempt to recruit her into what was described as a secret U.S. colony on Mars. So I am not sure what to believe with this gentleman. Now, there are many people that have come out and said that in 2007, I think it was, that there were, I think, multiple accounts that Andrew Basiago came forward with what he purported as evidence as life on Mars. Or he has said that he has indicated when NASA, or where there was pictures from NASA, from the rover, and people were stating that there was life on Mars, he was shocked and was not in disbelief, but was shocked and was overjoyed the fact that there was life on Mars. And so people are saying, how could you be overjoyed and shocked that there's life on Mars if you've claimed to have gone there in the late 70s and early 80s? Shouldn't you have known that? If you should have known, and you've claimed that there was life on Mars. So some of the things that he's talked about sort of contradict. But one of the things that was very interesting, and I heard this on, I think, Alex Jones, right? The radio guy. What's his broadcast? I forgot his broadcast.
It's always on in the morning. My son listens to him. God, what is it?
But he's always a fiery guy. He's a conspiracy theorist, and he talked to he didn't talk to Alex. InfoWars. So Andrew was on InfoWars, but he didn't talk to Alex Jones. He talked to another co-host, and this co-host asked Andrew the question about time travel and about going back in time. And, you know, we've always talked about what would happen if we were to go back in time. Wouldn't we like to change things? I know I sure as shit would love to change something in my past and make things different. But this co-host asked Andrew this question, and he said, what if you went, would this be possible if you were to be able to go back in time and kill your grandfather? What would happen? What would happen to you? What would you think, Lucy?
It's interesting that you bring that up because I was doing a little research on time travel, and I came across, we talked about this a little bit before we went on air. There is a program that's called Closer to the Truth, and they did a series of interviews with scientists, with physicists, theoretical physicists, and one of them, let's see, it is, well, one of them talks about it. They talk to people like Seth Lloyd and Fred Allen Wolf, theoretical physicist, Kip Thorne. And the whole thought about, they discussed this. They talked about going back in time and killing your grandfather, or going back and killing Hitler, for example. The thing that I got from this, okay, one of them, and I can't remember exactly which one it is, that the laws of physics would prevent you from changing something like that. They all talk about the theory of being able to travel in time, you know, but when they're basing it on scientific study, and that the consensus is that there is some law of physics that's going to prevent you from changing an event in the past. So, I don't know. I mean, from the scientific side of it, they're saying that this can't happen. It can't. The laws of physics won't allow you to do this.
There are many theories that have been purported about time travel, and when the idea of going back in time to manipulate the past and the effects of that, what happens. And some people have said, some brilliant people have talked about on the topic of time travel, in specific, the idea of when you change the past, when you go back in time and change the past, what happens to you. Some people have said that you actually create an alternate time dimension, that we actually are living in one of many time dimensions. And Andrew had described this on this interview, and he said that some people think that right now, and people who are listening, Ginger and Fritz and Sharon and Trina, and our guests right now who are listening, and those of you who are listening in archive right now or on YouTube, think of this right now. Next to you, as you're listening to this, next to you, probably Shakespeare is writing one of his plays right now, right to the left of you, just a few inches away, because he may be in a different time dimension as you are, because sometime, some way, somewhere, somebody went back in time and manipulated it and created another time warp, another time dimension. And so therefore, the other time dimension is still in this realm, but you can't see it, but it's actually existing. And so you could have George Washington to the right of you crossing the Delaware. the Delaware could be in your living room right now. Just because, it's in Maryland doesn't mean anything. Time dimensions can change locations. So some theorists think that when you change the past, you change the time dimension. And so therefore, when you come back to the past, you go to a different alternate time dimension. You where you were originally, you don't go back to. Now you go to the alternate time dimension. Excuse me. The original time dimension still exists, but is vacant, but you now are in a different time dimension. But what Andrew had described is exactly what you had talked about, Lucy, before, is that the universe or somehow, something prevents you from making that change in the past. So if you were to go back in the past, and let's just take the example of you wanting to go back and kill your grandfather, obviously that would mean that you would never exist. Okay? So if you were to go back and kill your grandfather, if you tried to shoot him, let's just say, if you tried to walk into his home and shoot him, it's not that there's this wormhole that would warp the field between you and your grandfather. No. There may be, as you're driving to your grandfather's house or as you're walking to your grandfather's house with the gun in your hand, somebody comes out of the bushes and attacks you, or you fall and trip and hurt yourself and prevents you, and by that time your grandfather leaves the house and goes somewhere else, and so therefore is preventing you from going there to kill him. If, say for instance, you have a knife and you're in the living room and you're about to stab him, and your great aunt or great aunt or whoever sees you with the knife and knocks it out of your hand, excuse me, it's being prevented. It's not that some sort of weird orb type of dimensional wave is creating that influx to not make that happen, but something material, something tangible is preventing you from allowing that to happen. And so therefore, the past cannot be manipulated. You can participate, as Andrew says, you can participate in the past. You could be there in the present. So as Andrew says that he claims to have gone back to the Gettysburg Address, he could be there to witness it. He could be there to be in the crowd. He can listen to it. He could be there amongst the people. He can talk to Abraham Lincoln. He could be there, but he can't change anything. He could not have walked up on that stage and attacked Abraham Lincoln. It would not have happened because he cannot manipulate the past. Somebody in that crowd would have knocked him over before he got there. So that's his claim as far as not being able to change anything. So there is no alternate time dimension. There is no alternate time, space, place, as he called it. There's nothing of that nature. We all live linear. It's not sort of like, excuse me, the Tarantino movies. When you watch his movies, it's sort of like, it's never linear. It's sort of like you watch a little, like the first 20 minutes, and then it sort of goes back, and then it goes forward again, and then it goes back. Those Tarantino movies are a little, crazy, back and forth. It's not like that. Life is linear, is what Andrew is saying. And it kind of makes sense a little bit. But then again, other scientists and physicists say that no one can time travel because nothing moves faster than the speed of light. And so, therefore, time travel is not possible. But to me, that scientist specifically, when you make a statement that time travel is not possible because nothing is greater than the speed of light, to me is a closed-minded statement. And if you create a closed-minded statement like that, because that is all you know at this point in time, you cannot say definitively. I know science is you have to state what is in front of you, and with all the evidence in front of you, you can't speculate because of what is beyond, and what is beyond you do not know. I get it. But to me, as a layman, as a regular person, time travel, I think, is possible. I think it truly is possible. And I think with the advancement that is going on right now within space and in the universe, I think we're going to be very close to be able to teleport. And I don't know whether or not Andrew is correct in what happened in the 70s, but I think the idea of time travel is still possible.
Well, everything that you just mentioned, I think of Back to the Future. I think of Marty McFly meeting his mother, and she falls for Calvin Klein, but yet he can't change that. He had to get his mother and father together in order for him to exist.
Right, and it's sort of like the idea of him and his brother and sister disappearing from the picture, because if that never happened, he would have never existed. But that's because well, it's a film, it's a movie, and here we are debating a movie's theory. But
but it explained it to me.
but I mean, that is one theory, that you can go back and manipulate the past, and therefore you then, if Marty McFly went back and his parents did not get together, obviously he would not have existed. But then again, with the whole idea of reincarnation that we've learned about and talked about, his soul and his spirit, and I'm not talking religious or any kind of faith, I'm talking about spirit and soul, the energy within your body, I believe that. That spark would have been ignited in someone else, and so therefore you still would have existed, but you would have existed somewhere else within that linear time frame. If that makes sense. Not on a different dimension, but on a linear time frame.
Well, you're talking about the linear, time goes, and one of the physicists that I was in this program, Miko Kaku, talks about, how Newton believes time's like an arrow, it's a straight shot, where Einstein thought time is like a river. It can fork, it can whirlpool, and Einstein's equations, they do allow for time travel. But the energy needed in order to move you faster than light would have to be something, such great force like an exploding star. Even though the movement to the past is possible, there's something in the laws of physics that prevents you from changing the past. So going back in time may be actually traveling into a different or parallel universe. So that's exactly what you said. This is what this physicist said. There's another one. What's his name? Fred Alan Wolf. He comes up with this theory that there is a time dimension to a deep consciousness within our minds that may have a different reality. That every time there's a conscious experience, we create a sequence. And each subsequent experience keeps that sequence going that implies a normal time order. It goes from more probable to less probable. But let's say the sequence goes from less probable to more probable. It's actually going to go backwards in time. But he's also saying that this is an internal process that goes in our mind, that it is a separate reality that we create inside our own mind and not actually in the actual time, actual sense of time.
Does that go back to my theory that we will create reality?
Yes. It does.
I'm not sure if I understand what you just explained. Honestly, I don't. I don't know what that meant, actually.
Fred Alan Wolf is claiming that the idea of time travel isn't really a physical thing. It is something that is within your own mind. So, to me, what it means is that time travel
like astral projection, then, maybe?
I guess it would be like that, because he's saying that it's a time dimension of deep consciousness within our own minds, that we're creating this sense of going back in time.
That we're creating. the sense of going back in time, so that going back in time is not real.
It's not real.
So we're not going back in time. Time travel then to him is not possible.
Right, according to him. But you have the other scientists that are saying, yes, it can happen. So again, you've got the different theories. You know, one is saying, no, it's a figment of your imagination. The other one is saying, yes, it can happen.
If you were able to go back in time, would you want to change not your history, but history in general?
No. Because I think everything has a natural progression. I still believe that things happen for a reason. So to go back and to change something, you're not changing that particular instance by itself. That instance that you're changing is going to have far-reaching effects. It's going to change more than just a single event. It starts the chain reaction of everything else. So in order to go back and to shoot Hitler is going to completely change everything else. Now, whether it is something for the good, something for the bad, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that is. So it's kind of like everything progresses the way it should be. Everything falls into place with the situation where it's at right now. And to have someone come back or to go back and to change that, that completely throws off everything out of balance. I mean, in my head, it's like there has to be a certain kind of balance to everything. Everything that happens, there has to be that balance. And to throw that completely off, does it, you know, by changing one instance in the past, could that, like, completely annihilate the Earth? Could it completely change mankind?
What's the difference with what the original incident or event was?
I'm just thinking that to change one little instance changes everything else around.
Right, and what I'm saying is the actual incident or event that actually happened created a wave of other events and incidents around it as well. So therefore, what would be the difference then if you were to create a better positive change? Why would you be hesitant to manipulate the past if it would say, for instance, the Hitler scenario, if it would save hundreds of thousands of Jewish members, wouldn't that be worth whatever would be a ripple effect of whatever could happen after that?
But you have no guarantee that that change is going to be totally positive.
What could be a negative effect from that? If let's just say, for instance, if you were to go back in time and convince Hitler's mother to have an abortion. So he never even existed.
Okay.
What would be the harm? What would be the ripple effect?
I don't know. That's the question. I don't know. I don't know what change that could be. I just feel that to change one instance could have far more reaching effects than just that actual instance.
But you're hesitant because it's unknown and you think it may be more negative than positive.
Right.
Why? That's my question. Because it's unknown, you think it's more negative than positive.
It could be a positive, it could be a negative. I don't want to take that chance.
But it could be more positive because you're saving hundreds of thousands of lives right off the bat.
So you get rid of Hitler, and all of a sudden the world is a happy place.
No, I'm not saying it's a happy place. but I'm saying there's 100,000 more lives on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of less grief.
So what's to say that the universe or the laws of physics, if everything, okay, let's go back to the Akashic records. Everything is supposed to happen, or the belief that everything is plotted out, your life is plotted out, and things are supposed to happen. Let's say that for some reason, this, you were supposed to die, you didn't die. Okay? Isn't it possible, see, in my head I'm thinking, okay, if you didn't die in this instance, if it is your path or your, to move on to the next plane, it may not be Hitler that ends your life. It may be something else. So you're just postponing, or you're just changing the way that this person is going to die. You've taken Hitler out of the equation, but yet this person who's been saved very possibly is going to meet their end somewhere else
Mm-hmm.
in a negative fashion. If it's their time to go, if that's what is supposed to happen, you've just changed it from being Hitler to maybe something else. They may end up going out in the street, getting hit by trucks.
Oh, obviously everybody dies. There's going to be a death at some point in life, but I don't think that there's a. I don't believe in the idea that the negativity outweighs the positive in the notion of creating a positive when you go back in time and manipulate the past.
Fitz understands what I'm saying. He's like the movie Final Destination. I watch too many movies.
I understand that at some point something is going to get you. I get it. I understand that whole point, but the idea of this mass execution, let's just say, I'm just using that as one example, this mass execution would not have happened. That obviously would not have happened in their lives if this person did not exist. So if we remove that, right, so if we remove that person, if I went back in time and I convinced Hitler's mother to have an abortion, that I now would have saved 100,000 lives. I understand now that I may have overpopulated the planet. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that part. I understand that all of these lives now would have met another death at some other point in time. Either it would have been by car accident, either it would have been suicide, murder, old age, whatever it is. I get that. Everybody dies. But I would have created less grief in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have created a happier world for people to live in, to prosper. And I think
for that
creating...
moment.
No, that ripple effect would have created... To me, when you create more negativity, you put down people, right? When you put down people, you stifle life. You stifle people's abilities to move forward, right? I could say, for instance, right now, if ISIS, the whole crap with ISIS, okay, if this, and Al-Qaeda, if those two groups of idiots never existed, okay, I think we as a species, as humans, I think we would have prospered just, and I'm squeezing my two fingers together, just this much more we would have prospered as people, just that much more than we are today. Because right now we are being stifled by the fear, by the negativity, by the unwearing foreboding inability to be able to travel freely, to have that worry. You know, all of those things right now are prohibiting a lot of people. And people are saying, well, yeah, I don't give a crap. It's not bothering me. It is bothering you. I know it is. And so having that on your mind, causing stress, causing mental sickness, it causes a lot. That has a ripple effect on people. And so if we did not have ISIS and Al-Qaeda in our lives right now, we would be prospering just a little bit more as human beings in this world. We probably would have been prospering health-wise a little bit better. We probably would be prospering a little bit more economically, agriculturally. Who knows what we could be doing? But right now, we're not, because we have this heavy cloud. We have this heavy umbrella over our heads right now. And that's the way I'm feeling when Hitler was around, that's what was creating the stiflingness of that time. And if he wasn't there, prospering would have grown, I believe. And who knows where we would be today.
I see what you're saying, but I'm also...
Like, for instance, CDs or technology could have probably come out earlier than the actual time that it actually did come out, or when it was actually born.
I see what you're saying. I understand, yes, it would be better, not to have that grief, not to have all that death. But I'm kind of leaning towards what all of the stuff that I've read from these scientists, these theorists, that I just don't think that the universe or whatever would allow it to happen. Because there has to be some kind of natural progression. And to change it upsets the balance. And if you upset the balance, something's going to happen somewhere else.
Oh, I know. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this particular piece, this part of time travel can happen. I believe in what Andrew was saying and what the other, physicists or scientists that you were talking about were saying, that we cannot manipulate the past. If we were to go into the past, we can only participate in. I believe in that. I don't believe we can. I was just, for argument's sake, what if you can go in the past? Would you change it? If it wasn't your life, would you go back and change it if you could? That's what the whole argument was about.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. I would go back and I would buy shares of Microsoft, like
No,
20 years ago.
I'm not saying for you. I'm not saying to benefit you. Of course, everybody would. Everybody would go back and marry Bill Gates and whatever, and all of that stuff.
I'd be betting on every World Series. Come on.
But that's what I was trying to get at. Is that, would you change something other than anything in your life? Would you change something in the world?
No. I think there are lessons to be learned, and I hate to say it this way, but I still believe everything happens for a reason. And there is no, and I know that sounds kind of weird and cold and everything like that, but I do believe that we've gone through certain things because there is some reason, there's something. I don't believe that changing one instance is going to make everything all good and fine. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm not saying because you think by changing one thing, I'm meaning that you're going to change everything in the world. I don't think that everything in the world is going to be, roses and lobster and caviar and champagne. I'm not saying that it's going to be that way. I'm just saying that if you're able to go back in time and change one instance, one horrible instance that could have been a blockage for us as humans. And, it's funny that I just mentioned blockage because Andrew talked about 2012 as being a blockage, as being a bump. And he talked about when people were to go into the future, that it was sometimes very difficult to go past 2012. And you know how we always talked about, and there was a whole big thing about, the end of the world being 2012. But in actuality, it was sort of like, the reset. Let's Control-Alt-Delete the world and start over, basically, and begin again. And that was sort of the whole Mayan calendar type of deal. So we begin again, we start fresh again, and we start new again with a new struggle and with a new life pattern. And he talked about that this 2012 was a bump. It was almost like a little bit of a blockage. He said sometimes it was very difficult to get past 2012. It wasn't preventative. He said that he has gone, or people have gone to 2045. But he said it was very strange that 2012 was sort of this weird bump in the road. And he still is not sure why it is that way. He did mention about this whole Mayan calendar thing, and explaining about, the reset and all that other stuff. But I thought that was very interesting. But it's also sort of timely to say that now because of the whole idea of the Mayan calendar and so on and so forth. And, I don't know. With what he is trying to convey, it's very difficult. But if you hear him talk, he's very intelligent, very amazing speaker to listen to and to hear what he says, and it is very convincing. But when you read it on paper, it's almost as if this guy could be committed to an institution. And so I would love to talk to him and just pick his brain and find out if it is true, if he can explain some of these things in a little bit more detail. And I would ask him if he has proof, if he can show his childhood picture and compare it to the picture of the Gettysburg Address, because that would shut people up, and we can move on from there. But I think going back to the whole idea of changing, the past, changing an event in history that could have created some sort of blockage for human nature, for us as humans on this world, in this universe. I think, number one, first of all, that incident or event, I believe, prevented us from moving forward. I think it may have created more negativity. And let me just give you this example, Lucy, and maybe you may understand this a little bit better. When there's a death in the family, okay, and someone close to you dies, obviously that feeling is going to linger with you for a long time. For some people, it's months. Some people, it's years. Some people, it will lessen, but obviously it never goes away. And so I equate that to a negative event in history. And so if this negative event in history creates this ripple effect within us as humans, it affects, first of all, it affects our energy. It affects the way that we live, the way that we interpret the world, the way that we interpret ourselves even too, the way that we live our lives. And so therefore, when we are living, if we were living during that time, say, of the concentration camps and of Hitler, I can guarantee you, your idea of the world is, why am I living? Why am I living right now? There's no sense to what I'm doing at this moment. If you were a skilled master at something, you'd probably be thinking, why am I doing this? If there's such evil in this world right now, why am I doing this? What's the sense of me doing this? If probably in a few years from now, it's going to be even worse. And so there's nothing to live for. And you have that that huge baggage on you that's preventing you from being prosperous, from being creative, from being loving, from being free. And so if you're able to take that away, I think not having that in the world at that moment in time, whatever people were working on at that moment probably would have flourished and nurtured and prospered even more. And so therefore, what we have now may have been invented, thought of, created, done, born many years ago. And we could be in a better life now, health-wise, medical advancements, technology, anything. That's the way I think of it. And I equate it to the idea of the thought of a loved one dying and always having that on your mind years and years and years.
Well, I totally understand that. Okay, my dad died over 30 years ago, and I still, to this day, still have that feeling of sadness. But I also still believe in a natural progression of things. And I'm just too chicken to take that chance to change something. Sure, I would have loved to have my dad here now. He never met my son. He's never met my son. My dad left before my son was born. So, yes, I would change that. I would love to change that. But is it what's supposed to happen? See, that's where my question comes in. I'd be scared to change the way things have happened. I have a fear of the unknown. And there's too many unknowns that surround that event.
It's funny that you say you have a fear of the unknown, but yet you're so into the paranormal.
I know. But see, wait a minute. The paranormal, the ghosts, the spirits, talking to the other side, isn't unknown to me. That is to me. Okay, I'm not saying for everybody else. But for
That's
me,
the unknown. You don't know who you're talking to.
But I know there's somebody there.
But you don't know who. And you don't know what.
I don't know who. But I know there's something there. There is some energy there that I am in contact with.
But it's the unknown.
To me, that's not an unknown.
That's an unknown. You can't argue with me. I'm a lawyer at heart. No, I'm kidding. All right. The whole idea of time travel just conjures up so many thoughts and feelings and emotions. I mean, it goes through the gamut of everything. There's so many people that have, many intelligent people in history and current who have said that that time travel is either real or is a conscious reality, is only a conscious reality that sort of just created within your own mind. And I equate it to the idea that we have the power to power our lives. We have the power and the energy to create what we see, feel, hear, touch, smell, everything. We have that ability. We are the gods of our own life. And so what we can do with our own lives, we can manipulate it. And so therefore, the idea of being able to time travel is something that we can do on our own. And, astral projection and astral travel, going to the Akashic Records is a form of that sort of soul-searching and inner ability that we all have. And so some people have said that we can do that on a daily basis. And obviously we can't change the past, but we can change the outcome of our future. And by learning from the past and what the past can teach us, can sort of give us a light and shine in the dark of what the unknown is for the future, and shine the light to the unknown of the future to be able to see where we can be or where we should be, and that's all about.
So wait, let's reverse this now. Okay, so you talked about going in the past, changing an event. Would you want to go into the future to see where everything is?
Hell yes. Hell yes, I would love to see. I would love to see what the future. I am a very impatient person, as you know. I have to have things done right now. I'm very quick. People call in work, in my day job, because this is not my real job. In my day job, people call me the ninja, and it's because I don't sit for more than 5 minutes. And I don't have a normal desk job, and so I'm constantly roaming around a building of 54 floors. I manage more than one building in the city, so I'm constantly all over the place. And they call me the ninja because I will pop in at what I believe is the right moment on my employees of when they're doing things that they should not be doing, and I'll catch them. So they call me the ninja. But I'm very impatient because I have to know everything right away. I have to know things, and I have to be prepared, good and bad, for what I believe to be is the unknown. And in my line of business, I have to have all things accounted for in case of X, Y, or Z. So if X happens, if Y happens, or Z happens, I have to have an alternate plan for all of those. Mm-hmm. If I know X is the only thing that's going to happen, I could breathe. So I would love to go into the future and be able to say, okay, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, and that's going to happen. Okay, good. And then if it's something that I can see that I may need to change, okay, I'll change this, I'll change that. Okay, I can move forward and I can actually breathe and live my life normal. I worry. I'm a constant worrier. Therefore, I have my medical conditions. So, therefore, I want to know what the future is all about. It may not be the right thing, but, I want to see what's in store for me.
See, now getting back to movies, I'm thinking of the Terminator.
You with these movie references.
I don't know. I watch a lot of movies.
I see that. Well, this is, I loved this topic. I loved this whole Andrew Basiago, or I don't even know. I don't know if that's how you really say his name. But this whole idea of time travel, and this gentleman, Andrew, really interested me. It is if it's true or not true, it still fascinated me to think that this guy either thinks or has truly gone into the past and into the future and into Mars, and claims to, as kids, gone with Barack Obama and all these people. It's an interesting topic to talk about, and would love to get him on the show. So, Lucy, get to stepping and see if we can get him on.
Yes. Well, I want to know about time-traveling Barry Obama. To quote Red.
We should ask Andrew, if we do get him on, how was Barack as a child? He also did say that in this interview that on InfoWars that his mother is actually not his mother. I think that this is sort of a planted mom to cover up his real mom, and that's why this whole big thing about his birth certificate is such a hoopla and all this other stuff, because of the whole time travel thing that I don't know. It goes into so many tangents. It's like a big tree with all these branches it goes into, and it's almost convoluted a little bit. But we got to get him on
to get the show.
Yeah,
I will do my best. And if you could see into the future, you'd see that I'm going to get him.
If I could see into the future, I will. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the Fan of the Week?
No, I think we've covered it. I mean, obviously, time travel is something that we really need to attack again. I mean, we did it very early on in the history of the show, and when I go back and I listen to that show, oh, my God. So I definitely want to touch on the subject. It was bad. It was so bad. But I really do want to attack this. I mean, just the research that I was doing just opened up so many other questions. So, but anyway, I will definitely try to do that. And in the future, I will learn to say the word origin.
Origin.
So, let's go to the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week.
She's dyslexic,
you know too. You know what? Since we've been on YouTube, our reach has grown. I mean, we have people all over the globe that listen to us. And this week, our Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week is from Oradea, Romania. And his name is Andre, but on Facebook he calls himself Andre. He's from Oradea, Romania. He likes Dead Can Dance. He likes Florence and the Machine, Sinead O'Connor, Amy Allen, The Simpsons, and, of course, he likes Paranormal Review Radio. Thank you so much, Andre, for listening to us. He listens to us on YouTube. And thank you so much for being a fan, and congratulations.
Wow, Sinead O'Connor. You know, my favorite song, Nothing Compares to You. Oh, my God. So old. Well, congratulations, Andre. Don't forget, if you want to be a Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week, just like us on Facebook or subscribe to us on YouTube at Paranormal Review Radio.
Well, another Christmas has come and gone. So now we start looking towards the new year. 2015 promises to bring about more change for all of us. But before we head into the new year, how about we look at where we've been this past year? 2014 was a year full of great fun, great guests, and so many wonderful Paranormal Review Radio family members who called in and became part of the best shows ever. So we want to invite you to join us next Friday night as we look back at 2014, Paranormal Review Radio's Year in Review. We're going to be getting some updates from some of the guests that we talked to. We're going to revisit some of the topics, both the fun ones and the controversial ones. And, of course, we want to hear from you, our loyal listeners. So call in next week. Let us know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, what topics or guests do you want to hear more about, or never again. Did one of the shows lead you into doing your own research? Call us and tell us about it. The lines of communication are open, and the floor is yours. So speak up and join the conversation. Thank you, everyone. All of the listeners who make this show so much fun to do. We promise to keep bringing you more of what you want to hear in 2015. Thank you, Anthony, for another great year. I can't wait to see what kind of trouble we get into in 2015. So, until next year, dear one, have a safe and happy new year. And here's to a paranormal-filled 2015. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Paranormal Review Radio. Paranormal Review.